And so it's always good to be back on your screens to bring you every episode of the food chain here on the Joy News channel. And today on our discussion is ethnobotanical and intercropping, and we are interacting with scientists from the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. We know farmers need benefit from whatever they grow in the soil, even as they feed themselves and feed the country. They need the money to continue with this particular production. And so today on the food chain, we are looking at intercropping, how this can benefit farmers generally and ensure that in a space of climate change, the farmers get the benefits thereof whilst they grow on the soil. And so today we are speaking about the diversification pathway in Africa through bio-based and circular agriculture innovations here on the food chain. My name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku. Stay with us.
Would you away no na wo ye ne sa ne nwura ne kura ntimi nya dai emfu kese enti no so boa ma wo da wo nya dai o mre kese ba de o ne se e wo se utimi dofi se o de kofa aburo na e nku aburo no bo beku ubi nsi no.
So you are still watching the food chain here on the Joy News channel with me, Emmanuel Bright-Kweku, and at this moment we want to understand what is really happening on the farm. Today we are here at Ejura, and it's because of the diversification pathway in Africa through bio-based and circular technologies, and that's why we are here for this particular discussion to understand what are some of the technologies farmers can adopt to diversify whatever they are doing on their farms and get the benefits thereof from their farms. And I'm joined by Dr. Eric Owusu-Dankwa, and he will be speaking with us on today's technology that the farmers are being introduced to. Doc, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yeah. Doc, we want to know, first of all, I know today you are teaching them intercropping. First of all, we want to know what intercropping generally is.
Okay, so intercropping is a form of cropping where you put more than a crop on a field, but you do it in such a way that you put one as a row and then you put one as in between, as you can see here. So this is typically an alley cropping where you put the shrub or the tree, which in this case is pigeon pea, in alleys. Then in between you put your typical food crop, which is maize. So this is an alley cropping, which is a form of intercrop.
Would you say it's similar to mixed cropping, or it's not similar?
Yeah, so mixed cropping is similar, but depending on the strategy of your arrangement. You can do scattered, where you put all the crops, there's no definition, you just scattered all of them. It's also mixed cropping, but here we have a strategy, and we have done it in such a way that we put the shrub or this pigeon pea in lines, then we space them up, and then we put the crops in. So depending on your strategy, you do some variations to assist in what you want to achieve.
Yep. All right, sure. So somebody would want to understand, or personally I would want to understand, why must farmers even adopt intercropping? Why are you introducing them to this particular type of farming?
Yeah. So, and it is clear that climate change is really affecting our food production systems. And one of the strategies that we can use to able to address this issue is to be able to mitigate the effect of climate change and also adapt to what the climate has brought. So one of the adaptation strategy is to be able to provide shade, which will help reduce loss of moisture from the soil and also shade your food crops to reduce the effect of the sunlight on it. So that is where intercropping comes in. You try to vary your system in such a way that you are able to get a fast growing tree species or shrub, which is this very fast growing. This is less than 3 months. Very fast growing, and the biomass is rich in nutrients, especially N. It's able to tap nitrogen from the atmosphere into its tissues and fix it in the soil for the benefit of the maize.
But do we have specific crops that you would need to plant on, let's say, a particular land, and then so that it complements each other?
Yeah, so I like the word you use, complement. and that is the strategy we use. You don't just bring any crop. You have to bring something on the table once you are selected as a crop. So for example, we selected pigeon pea and maize. Maize takes a lot of N. Pigeon pea also fixes N. So it's like you are supporting me, you are helping me, and that is a good strategy. So we don't have fixed crops that do this and that, but based on your strategy and what you want to achieve, that is when you select the crops to be able to, achieve your objective. So here, so if you can see, we have applied fertilizer to some of them. We have not applied some, and some we have applied half the recommended rate, with the intention that with the introduction of the pigeon pea, at least if I'm not applying all and I'm applying half, I save some money. So that is what we are evaluating, and so far our earlier year evaluation tells us that at least if you apply half the recommended rate, you are the yields are similar to if you had applied full rate. So you slice it by half, you are still doing well.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know this is just maize and then the pigeon pea.
Yeah.
In case of, we are growing cassava, plantains, other tubers, what can we complement? What crops can you say we can use on that field?
Yeah, so the crops that you put in are crops which are your preference, right? So we don't have it fixed for all farmers. We try to vary it based on preference. So for example, we've put maize, this is pigeon pea. Once you take your maize, you can put cassava, right? And still the biomass of the pigeon pea can enrich the soil for the benefit of the cassava, right? So once you do it, then the following year you can. So the pigeon pea becomes perennial in your system. Every year you just harvest your beans, you leave it, you harvest the biomass onto the soil, right? So these are things that you keep, so you can vary the what you have put here. The maize, you can change it to cassava. You can also even change it to another legume, maybe cowpea, and that means you are doubling the nitrogen.
Okay.
Should you put cowpea, it means that this is ardent, this is ardent. Then at the end of the day, there is more nitrogen. You can quickly put a plant which takes more N, like rice or maize. Your ability to fix a higher quantity or better nitrogen depends on your biomass.
Okay.
Let me bring it down. It means that the bigger your size or the faster you grow, the more you are able to put more nitrogen into the soil. So I'm fatter than you. So it means if you were pigeon peas, if I'm fatter than you, it means I've accumulated more N into my biomass. So if I'm pruned, more biomass will be from me than you. So I'm fixing more. Yeah. So if you compare me to a normal cowpea, this is like almost a tree, a shrub. And a normal cowpea that is not even closer to a tree.
Wow. And
the more you grow, the more you add more to your biomass. So this one fixes more than the other legumes like granite, soya bean, and then cowpea. Just because this can grow into a tree, it has deeper roots. It goes deeper, take nutrients which are within the reach of the maize, put it in the biomass, offload it through the leaves into the soil, and then the maize takes it. But if you put cowpea, the root doesn't go deeper. So nutrient recycling, nutrient pump, it recycles it.
Okay. When you compare it to the cowpea, how different is this?
The cowpea is normally white with a black eye.
Okay.
The cowpea normally has a white, this side is white with a black eye, but this one looks like brown with even a brown eye. Yeah, so they do eat it. In fact, I have eaten it before.
Can you eat it with gobe?
Yes, you can eat it as gobe. You can use it.
But this one looks smaller compared to the...
Yeah, of course, but some of the beans, the gobe beans that you see, they are not as big from the farm. But once it imbibes water, it starts to swell. Yeah, so you can use it. Yeah, it's very nice.
This is quite different from
the major production area is within Nkoranza, the BA side, but Ejura has also taken it up And then, in fact, this is mainly grown in Asia, in India, Sri Lanka, but it's now adapted here
in Ghana. Yeah. I can see on the plots that we have, you applied a bit of fertilizer, even though we have the nitrogen fixing, or the legumes actually. You know, there is a controversy around inorganic fertilizers affecting the plants, especially contributing to even climate change as well. Is it good that we combine some of these technologies?
Yes, so we are promoting integrated soil fertility management. So the integrated soil fertility management simply means that get some organics, get some inorganic and combine, because the soils are already exhausted. Yeah. If you want to use only organic, it takes time. Even the quantities you not get. But if you depend on organic and inorganic, little from there, you can combine and make the best out of. So what we have done here is to apply half rate, recommended rate, full recommended rate, and no fertilizer. Why have we done that? We want to know if we use half of the recommended fertilizer rate, are we able to get similar yields if we had used full? Don't forget, full rate means more money, more fertilizer, more labor. Yeah. And our results is so far telling us that if we apply half, we are better off, because economically it is wise to use half than to go for the full rate. In fact, moving on, we are even going to reduce the half to further half and see if we further reduce the half, if we are still going to make economic sense. And once we are able to make economic sense, we will recommend these to farmers.
Climate change is really affecting us generally as a country, or even globally, let me put it that way. And how would this help in terms of helping the farmers get their yields? You know, the rains did not come, and how can the intercropping compared to the conventional way of farming help in this case?
Whether we like it or not, the climate has changed. Not that it's changing, it has changed. Now you can see it. And how can we say that? Are we saying that because it has changed, we will also sit down and not feed ourselves? We have to adapt. And some of the adaptation strategy is to be able to take advantage of what you have to maximize your potential. So for example, this is just 3 months old. Give it a year, it becomes like almost a tree, and it gives shade. Shading is very important when there is no rains, to conserve moisture and to be able to help the crops which are growing with it. So these are some of the adaptation strategies. Also, because it's a fast growing tree, one of the problems or the gases which is causing climate change is carbon. This is able to tap carbon from the atmosphere into its tissues. So it's able to lock it and is able to reduce it, and that is good for climate change mitigation.
All right, sure. So Doc, thank you very much for joining us. And so I have been interacting with Dr. Eric Owusu-Dankwa, and he is an agronomist on this particular project, that's diversification pathway in Africa through bio-based and circular technologies. And he has been teaching us about intercropping and how it can actually help the farmers here. And so we continue our discussion here on the food chain on intercropping, and you want to stay for more.
Mumu saying a quick assessment, and as my human baby and the kagu from the dorsum. In the honey of Brunkwa, on the Sabianim, and a honey assay and an infimfi, dear Bruna Sheho. In Timframana fire, no. Baby, I say no a war Ninchana from fire, dear, but the intimate can brunicase.
And so where I'm currently standing is a plot that is demonstrating only maize that was used on this farm. And just behind me is one that was intercropped with the pigeon pea. And I want you to pay a critical attention to what is currently happening on this particular field. So if you would realize, the maize that was actually planted only without the pigeon pea, you have its stem tilting, or the entire maize shoot actually tilting to the side, or not in a diagonal form, instead of the normal, it's growing upright into the skies. But the one that was grown or intercropped with the pigeon pea, you would see it is standing firmly in the ground or is standing firmly on the ground because it's been protected by the pigeon pea. And so when the rainstorm actually came, it did not affect it at all, but the ones that were standing alone were affected by the rainstorm. And so it tells how critical intercropping is to farmers.
Starting one start here. Until you just send me waha. Edi could dry. I remember the name of Momu be breed by a brand dry, no. And also much musa. So you know, Gina, ya, Brony, say one so toy and I say a come.
Who you sue a
seno? None of Cramasan could be for. To me, you sue a son into my Bruno, dear, any problem be a
come up.
And you come up.
First, now you're saying, and last year crown a Bruno Unyan do saying this year when you be account.
Dear, my nyabi. Last year, no, so no toy and so. My nya broke one can win your bear bag me and sampe. So cafe and can so no toy said the Calasi a toy and one. And cafe a room a book rain yasam ketua. Safi and soon and toss so still, who man for the enemy and how they compare. With whom say difference album.
I feel now, Peterson, we are bopa. I might not buy a dear in an, we are saying us when I'm being who say, I'm a cowum. And I'm a senna or my day, or did you have fin, I'm a say, we know, I'm a cowum.
See it to me, and say ya, and you betra ach and say, near a deek, I start you know. If you say intercropping on me, I say, I said on with the frame one. A money shade one, a samano, nitrogen, a best support no. Amana side assassino enye aduane ne kakra ni nsuo na ebe den ebe gine mu na amane de anyini no enti ye feel say yetimi ye ni say ya ebe boa ya ma ebro no kura hye a ase no ye benya ase na ye de be edi.
And so you are still watching the food chain with me, Emmanuel Bright Kweku, here on the Joy News channel, and I'm being joined by Dr. Felix Frimpong, and he is the agro-economist on this particular project. I am talking about the Divagri project, and that is currently happening here at Ejura. And Doc, you are welcome to the food chain.
Thank you, Ima.
Yeah. So we want to know, I have seen this over there, and I'm just wondering what this is and what is the use of it, especially on the farm.
Yes, so this giant structure you see there is a locally fabricated biochar kiln. So in simple terms, we use it to manufacture biochar. And biochar is charcoal, activated charcoal, which we use it as in the form of a fertilizer. Okay, so you apply it to the soil and it's able to help the fertility of the soil. Most of our soils are acidic. We are in the forest belt, okay, and forest soils are acidic soils. What it means is that the fertility is low. It hampers the plant's ability to absorb nutrients. But when you apply biochar, it raises the pH of the soil, thereby the plant being able to absorb the nutrients. The idea behind having a locally fabricated biochar kiln is for us to be able to produce in large quantities this biochar, so that the agricultural waste, the residue that we get, the maize stover, you know, when you go to areas where they produce huge quantities of rice, you realize that after the harvest, they leave behind a lot of husk and even the biomass. Now we can convert these waste, which ordinarily farmers will burn away, which becomes a problem for the atmosphere, because straight away you are contributing to greenhouse gases into biochar, and that becomes fertilizer. So we are not only reducing the GHG emissions, but you are also returning back what you took from the land, and that is a sustainable practice.
So is it just the rice that you are going to get, or any other biomass from the farm at all can be used for the biochar?
Yeah, Ima, thank you. You are right. Any other waste from the farm can be used. In fact, we've tested even as far as some of the waste, the litter that we get from trees like flamboyant. Okay. And you turn all these into biochar, and you can even briquette the biochar. Any farm waste, so far as it's a residue and it has some amount of carbon in it, you can turn it into activated charcoal and then you use.
Okay.
So even the residue from cowpea, the pod, okay, and then even the biomass itself, the leaves, when it dries, you can put it in the kiln, and then it's able to turn it into biochar for you. The significant aspect of this, which is different from the normal ones which we import, is that the turnover is very high. One of the hindrances to this biochar technology being adopted is the farmers getting the biochar in high volumes. Okay, and we thought it wise that okay, for them to be able to get enough, you need the kiln, so that if we have now been able to demonstrate it here in Ejura, it means that farmers around, all the communities around, can bring their biomass here and turn it into biochar.
When we were talking, you made mention of the fact that the biochar contains carbon, and we want to know what is the essence or how vital is carbon to the soil or even plant growth.
So carbon is very key. You know, the carbon helps in the organic amendments, and then it is what the soil microbes feed on. Okay, so it is very essential. You need carbon in your soil. When decomposition takes place, all that is decomposed is carbon, and it's returned into the soil and it gets fixed. And so carbon is so essential, and it helps to raise the pH, like I earlier said, and everything. And without that, it means that there is not enough nutrients. Okay, it has all the major and minor nutrients in it. It has potassium, it has phosphorus, and some amount of nitrogen, depending on the type of biomass that you burn into, and then you fix into the soil. So it is very, very essential.
So when you are using this, you can combine it with other inorganic or
exactly.
Okay.
If you have in your possession cow dung, or you have poultry manure, you can mix it, and even is best. You can even mix it with the inorganic fertilizer if you're able to afford, and that even helps. Okay, so biochar, I believe, is the way to go, but we need innovations like this to be able to have access to the material. Access is hindrance to the adoption of biochar technology, and that is why the kiln is so very, very important.
Yen fudi a ye wia na asai kwa bi e hye no ne ade no ehu hia enti ye ne officer o ha no bidin kita ho de ha me ne se afidie ye ba akopɛ na o ha eni se kina me so ame ne ma gutatem de aba ha no bidin de abegu a wonya ne se ne apenti se beboa ye de a na ye sere se won NCC bi enka ho.
So we have been talking about divergry, and you might be wondering what this essentially is. It's revenue diversification in Africa through bio-based and circular agriculture innovations. And I'm being joined by the project lead for this particular project, and he will be telling us more about what this project entails. So I'm joined by Dr. Shadrach Kojo Amponsa, who is the project lead. Doc, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So, Doc, as I earlier mentioned, divergry. We've come here, we always talk about divergry. Help us understand what divergry is all about.
Right. Thank you very much. I think as the name goes, it speaks for itself. So, revenue diversification in Africa through bio-based and circular agriculture innovation. So, simply is a way to diversify the revenue outlets for farmers. In time past, we know that farmers have been doing a lot of work, but they have little to show for. One reason being that they don't see farming or agriculture as a business yet. And as part of what we do here, we also realize that farmers have a lot of sustainable agricultural processes that they follow. I mean, the normal day-to-day work they do more sustainable work, like shifting cultivation and things like that rejuvenates the soil and all that. So what we essentially do with the divergry is to point them to the right ways to diversify their income sources. Not just the crops, not just the animals, but what other things can we do using or leveraging on the waste in quote from their system to be able to generate more income and improve their livelihood. And in the case of farmers that we've trained in Ejura, that Ejura setup is more like our
a knowledge sharing center where we have all these bio-based solutions. I've talked about the biogas, I've talked about the mushroom production, farming. Right. We looked at even intercropping. Yeah. So that is how we go about it. We are not giving them money, but we are giving them knowledge that will help them improve. We all know that knowledge is power. So once the farmer is empowered through knowledge, he's able to actually expand and increase revenue and improve their livelihoods, and that's what we stand for as DiveAgri.
In my interactions with some of these farmers, they tell me that through this particular project, they are able to, even if they are not able to get the maize, they are able to get the guinea and the pigeon pea from it.
Exactly.
But I want to understand from your point of view, how can the government support with such initiatives? We know over the years, farmers are just known for monocropping, but how can government help in terms of this upscaling it to a level where not just the farmers in Ejura will benefit, but ensure that across the country we have this? What are the plans you are doing to have that?
Right. So I'm very happy you asked this question, because then one, covering this in the food chain is one of the ways that we can help publicize this whole concept of what we're doing with DiveAgri. The project is a 4-year, in fact, let me say it was a 4-year project. It's ending by close of this year.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yes, but then the plan is to maintain the pilot site as living labs, where farmers can come in from time to time to receive support, and then we do co-creation of new products that can come in that we can share with farmers. Okay. And then for the demo sites at Ejura, the plan is to use that as a knowledge sharing center or knowledge sharing hub, where, and the good thing is that for the Ejura demo, it's on our own land, the Crop Research Institute, our outstation, so we can have control to manage what goes on and what comes out. Now, the farmers there would have the opportunity to access the place anytime, because there we have the biochar kiln for biochar production, where farmers can even bring their residues, you know, waste residues, and then come and then biochar, paralyze them into biochar for use on their field. And that could come in as free or something at a more moderate price, where farmers can access. And then they can also come there to learn on the job, more like we need solutions, we need some kind of support, intervention in terms of circular economy and bio-based technologies. Come there, they see at first hand what is happening, and we help them. So the Living Lab will serve as a hub where farmers can come in and get on the spot support to help them improve their livelihoods. And that is what we do. So I know government hearing us will be able to collaborate with us and see how we can help these farmers and then improve their gains.
All right, sure. Thank you very much, Doc. And in fact, I'm really excited about the project we are doing here at, I would call it the cottage. We call it the cottage here at the CSIR, the Crops Research Institute. And I have been interacting with Dr. Shadrach Kojo Amponsa, who has been sharing with us the essentials of the DiveAgri project. It appears fertilizer is not the only means to ensure that your crops grow beautifully. Adopting some sustainable farming practices such as intercropping would ensure you have a beautiful and bountiful harvest. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion here on the food chain. Join me same time next week for another exciting episode. My name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.